This one is big, and this one is little. I first came to YDI 30 years ago, and I stayed at the shelter at Amistad, where I ended up there because my parents were teen parents and they didn't have the skills to take care of me. And the Child Protective Services took me, and I was in protective custody at the shelter. And that was my first time that I ever lived anywhere that my stomach did not hurt, that I felt safe, that my opinion mattered, that I got to pick out my own clothes, I got to pick out what I got to eat, I got to do chores and watch TV, and I just had a lot of freedom and to find out what I liked in life, and I wasn't made to do anything, and it was really nice. There I learned about interpersonal relationships and communicating, and I learned that I was valuable and that I was never going to get hit ever again. And I was declared an adult when I was 17. And then I started working, and at 18 I started working towards my associate's degree because I wanted to work at YDI. That was my dream. I wanted to work at YDI. My whole purpose for going to school was so I could work at Amistad, but there was no openings when I first came to YDI, so I waited. And then when an opening came up, I jumped and I got to be a case manager at YDI at Amistad. Sorry, that was just the happiest, even though I'm crying, but it was the happiest time that I ever had. And I worked there for 1 year with the teenagers. They were ages 13 to 17, and I was able to teach the kids that couldn't go to school, that had to stay at the shelter during the day. Maybe they were in protective custody or something like that. They had to stay at the shelter, so I was able to teach. It's my first teaching opportunity, and I taught the kids there. And then after Amistad, I found out about Head Start while I was working at Amistad, and I just thought that the kids at Amistad, if they could have something, a connection with somebody before teen, that they could make it in life, easy. Life would be easier, and they could just make it, smooth. And if I could have anything to do with that, I wanted to do it. So I transferred to Head Start, and my first year was absolutely amazing. I did not know that I had a gift for children, and I felt like that I know I can make an impact, and eventually I'm friends with some of my kids now on Instagram, my first kids, but I just knew I can make an impact at Head Start, and I know I did, and I know I have, and I know I will continue to do that. And if I wasn't inspired at YDI when I was 14, I wouldn't be sitting here now, 30 years later. I wouldn't be sitting here inspired every day to make a difference in all these families' life. I really love taking care of the kids so much. I think I said that about 5 times already, but I really love taking care of the kids, and I just am so grateful that I got to be at YDI. My first 5 years were at YDI, and NACI accredited. That is, I just don't think you could get better than that. And I moved out of state to Ohio. I was running away from everything that happened to me in New Mexico. I went to Ohio, and then I started working with refugee children that were from Rwanda, that they had a much worse life than I could have ever dreamed of having. I used to think, getting hit and having to work after school instead of play, and various other things that happened to me that I won't mention. You could just use your imagination. The little kids there, they were missing limbs, and they were missing their parents and sisters, and they were drinking out of water that had bodies in it, you know, dead bodies from war, and they had much worse things happen to them than I ever could dream, and that made my heart soften more. And I always took my standards that I learned from YDI, from Head Start, I took them with me. So I made sure to make connections with the parents, I made sure to make connections with all the children, and treat everybody fairly and kind. This is important work, and I know it's not for everybody, but I'm just grateful for the 8 years that I was in Ohio, that I was able to work with different age groups. I worked with infants all the way to teenagers, and I'm grateful that I got to see another side of the world, another side of the country, and other cultures. I moved on and I went to a place called Mini University that was in Ohio, and they were also 5 stars, and I felt at home there. But unfortunately I had to move back. My dad was ill, and I wanted to come back to help him in his last days, to take care of him, so I moved back to New Mexico. So even though me and my parents were separated, YDI actually brought my parents and me back together to volunteer, and it was just really wonderful to see them together to volunteer. I just want everybody that hears about YDI, and everybody that can just get what I got. I feel like YDI saved my life. I feel like that if I didn't get with YDI when I was 14, I don't know what would have happened to me. If I can make this program in this classroom, I could start here in my classroom, perfect. That would be just my dream. And I love YDI, and I want everybody to love YDI as much as me. Thank you.